What if everything you thought you knew about the history of our world was just the cover story? And what if the real one was discovered 7 miles under the sea, locked inside a crystal that shouldn't even exist? Yeah, so let's dive into this incredible, world-shattering premise of the Kael'Nyrin Scrolls. This one line, this cryptic message pulled from that impossible artifact, it's the key to everything. It speaks of unbelievable power, a deep sense of responsibility, and a secret that's been kept for billions of years. This isn't just a quote. It's basically the mission statement for the civilization that may have written our entire history. So it all kicks off in pretty much the last place on Earth you'd expect to find, well, a history book. We're talking about a deep-sea expedition scanning the crushing absolute blackness of the Mariana Trench when their sonar picks up something that glimmers. It's not a rock. It's something made, something deliberate, something that was hidden. And when they finally get it to the surface, this thing just defies all known physics. It's this perfect crystalline obelisk, way harder than diamond, and it's made of a material that has no business being on our planet. But here's the wild part. Its internal structure, this crystal lattice, it isn't just a pattern, it's data. A massive encrypted library of information. Okay, so after years of work, a secret group of scientists using quantum AI finally starts to crack the code. And the very first thing they translate? It's a claim so staggering it changes everything. It says that our evolution, our history, our very existence, it wasn't an accident. It was all guided. The discovery of this object, which the recovery team jokingly called Poseidon's USB drive, kicked off an immediate, top-secret global response. A secret group of the world's absolute sharpest minds was brought together to decode its message, because they knew the answer could literally rewrite every book we have. And that, of course, brings us to the biggest question of all. If our history was guided, well, who were the guides? The Scrolls, as it turns out, had a name for these invisible architects. The science team came up with a name based on patterns in the scrolls themselves, the Kael'Nyrin, Kael for their origin among the stars, and Nyrin for a kind of timeless wisdom that is just almost impossible for us to wrap our heads around. It's really just a label for beings who operated on a truly cosmic scale. And to give you an idea of the sheer scale we're talking about here, look at this. On the Kardashev scale, which measures how a civilization uses energy, we humans are a type 0.72. We haven't even mastered the energy of our own planet yet. The scrolls suggest the Kael'Nyrin were a type 3 civilization. They could harness the energy of an entire galaxy. We're not just talking about some advanced alien race here. This is something much closer to what we would call gods. But here's the thing. With all that incredible power, they chose restraint. This was their core philosophy, what they called their first-order principle. Their goal wasn't to rule, and it wasn't to control. It was to gently nurture new life across the universe, to be the gardeners, not the gods. A subtle, almost invisible hand shaping destiny. So you might be thinking, okay, if they were here, where is all the evidence? Well, according to the scrolls, it's literally everywhere, hidden in plain sight. They didn't build giant monuments. They built the very conditions that allowed us to exist in the first place. The scrolls point to these key moments in Earth's history, from, and I'm quoting here, kindling the fire of our planet's magnetic core billions of years ago, to maybe triggering that huge explosion of life in the Cambrian period, all the way to giving early humanity a few subtle genetic nudges that sped up our path to consciousness. So how'd they do all this? Well, this gives us a little glimpse. It wasn't about landing big, flashy ships. It was about stabilizing the global climate over eons, fine-tuning the moon's orbit just enough to create the perfect tides, and even encoding basic knowledge into our earliest myths and legends. They basically built the stage and then gently pushed the actors onto it. But a story about perfect, all-knowing gardeners would be a little too simple, wouldn't it? The scrolls actually reveal a much more complex and, frankly, a much more believable truth. The Kael'Nyrin were not perfect, not by a long shot. And that, right there, is the million-dollar question. Could beings with that much power actually make mistakes? The scrolls reveal that the answer is a huge, resounding yes. They weren't some single-minded hive mind. They argued, they had debates about their purpose and their principles, just like we do. In fact, they were deeply split. On one side, you had the purists, the ones who believed in that first-order principle of absolute non-interference. But on the other, you had the interventionists, who saw younger species stumbling towards destroying themselves and felt like they had a moral duty to step in more directly. And this wasn't just some philosophical debate. It had very real consequences for planets, like Earth. Because every little intervention, no matter how well-meaning it was, had ripple effects. Stabilizing the climate here might lead to overpopulation there. A genetic nudge for intelligence could create some unforeseen vulnerability down the line. Even the myths they used to guide us ended up sowing seeds of division and conflict between our cultures. Their story is a pretty profound cautionary tale about the arrogance of power, even when it's used for good. And this is the part where the story stops being their history and starts becoming ours. Because discovering the Kael'Nyrin isn't just about them, it holds a giant mirror up to everything we think we know about ourselves. This quote from one of the researchers on the project just perfectly captures that feeling of existential vertigo. If our evolution wasn't random, if our gods were just these fragmented memories of visitors from the stars, then what does it even mean to be human anymore? The scrolls force us to ask the biggest questions there are. Who are we, really? Are we just a random accident, part of a divine plan, or a cosmic project? And if we were guided, what was the whole point? What was the end goal? And maybe most importantly, now that we know all this, does it change our responsibility for what comes next? This analogy from Plato's cave is just the perfect way to think about it. For all of human history, we've been staring at shadows on a cave wall, thinking that's all there is. The scrolls are like someone grabbing us, turning us around, and forcing us to see the fire that's been casting those shadows the whole time. It's blinding, it's terrifying, and it changes absolutely everything. So in the end, the scrolls tell us the Kael'Nyrin might have written the first few chapters of our story, but they also make one thing crystal clear. The stage is now ours, the pen is in our hands, and the only question that really matters now is what story are we going to choose to write next?